is the start of our weaving, our yarn weaving project. You're going to need your loom, and your loom is all stringed up. This is the front of your loom. You're only going to be working on the front of your loom. This is what the back looks like. Most students have their name on the back, and then also the string, is diagonal, and the ends are tied up. So this is what the back looks like, but you're only going to be concentrating on the front. Here is your blue plastic needle, and then you should have some yarn available. Make sure that you've practiced tying that overhand knot inside of the eye of your blue needle before you start. I want my students to get used to that, at least practice 5 times tying it and then untying it. If you're still struggling after a full class period of practicing, then I want you just to get started and finger weave, and I'll talk to you more in class time if that's something you're struggling with. Just let me know. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. When you're tying your knot, and I already show you in the demo video, make sure, I don't want you to, with your really long strand of yarn, I don't want you just to put it right in the middle and tie the knot there. I say this in the video too, just getting used to going right on the end. The rest of the yarn is over here, and I think I demonstrated this way where, you make that circle, that little short end goes over, under, and through, and then you grab both ends and you pull. So it should always look like this. You should always have about this much yarn at the end, and then the rest of the yarn is hanging from the side. Okay, so weaving, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit more. This is as much as I think I can get. So you're going to start at the top and you're going to work your way down. When we weave, so in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, we always do that same type of pattern when we do paper weaving. So over, under, over, under, over, under. It's always opposite. So this is a good exercise just to kind of keep your brain engaged, keep your brain thinking. It's sometimes you slip up, it's okay. You catch that and you just go back and fix it. But once you get the hang of it and you get the pattern going, then it's just a nice relaxing kind of a cool project like that. So I'm going to start under. You could start over if you wanted to, but as long as you do opposite. So I'm going to go under this first string. Now some of you might have to kind of lift it up. If you tug on this string right here, don't lift it too hard up. You don't want to stretch the string because that makes weaving a little bit harder. You don't want to rip your string through these slits right here because that's going to mess up your loom and makes your weave harder to do, harder to create. So just be extra careful. That needle should just slide through, but sometimes you have to tug at it. So hold on one second, my computer is doing something funny. Okay, here we go. Okay, thanks for waiting. So, under, and then over. And then under, over. Under, over. Under, over. You're going to make your way all the way across. Under, over. Under, over. Under, over. Under, over. Under, over. Under, over. And again, just gently lifting them up to kind of snug them through. All right, so once you get your needle all the way through, then I want you to pull your yarn all the way through. This is a big important thing to remember. A lot of students forget to do this part. You're going to have about this much left. You don't want to pull it all the way through because then you just have to, you have to do it again. And then what you do is you just kind of squish it up all the way to the top. And then you're going to go back this way. Sometimes I have students flip over and they come back up to here and try this. This is the wrong way. That is not what you're going to do. Like I said at the beginning, you're always just going to be concentrating on the front of your loom. Don't worry about this back side right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back this way. And I have to do it opposite, so where I ended. So if you look at my last string right here, and where is my yarn? It's over this last string. So now when I start my next row, I have to go under, over, 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 under, over. And then you pull it all the way through. Now here's a trick. So sometimes students don't pull their string through and then they leave it so that there's this like really loose little hook right here. Okay, we don't want that. What I want you to do is tug it, but don't tug it too tight. If you pull too tight, then your weave is going to have kind of an hourglass shape. It's not going to look like a long rectangle, like a blanket. So if you tug too tight, you're going to want to loosen it a little bit. You just want to tug it just enough. So I'm going to try to pull this through a little bit more. And sometimes it's just easier to use your needle to kind of poke, or if you have fingernails. Okay, you just want it to be nice and snug, not too tight, not really loose. Okay, and then you're just gonna keep doing it until your yarn runs out. So I ended on over. I'm gonna go ahead and go under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. Under, over, and then again pulling it all the way through, not too tight, not too loose, just snug. We want to keep this rectangular shape of our weave. Okay, I'm going to go again. So I ended on over, I'm going to start on under, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. You know, if you need to switch directions, if you want to try it, you know, different, like this or something, you could. I just like to go right across, but okay, once you get that needle, tug it through. Again, nice and snug, not too tight, not too loose. And then you squish it all the way to the top. So I probably could go through one more time, let's see. So I ended on over, I'm going to start on under, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, over. Okay. Again, ooh, I pulled a little too tight, so I'm going to just kind of. All right, so when you have about this much left, it's about, if it's anything shorter than your needle, this is about the same length as my needle, then it gets really hard to get your needle out of the string. So when you have about this much left, about the length of your needle, then that's when I want you to untie and finger weave the rest of your string through. Okay. Untie and then you're gonna finger weave. Okay, it'll be easier. So And it's good for your fingers too. So I ended on over, I'm gonna start on under, over, and again, just being super gentle with the string, not pulling too tight. Over, under, over, under. And this is sometimes where some of the yarn kind of breaks apart, so just being careful. Folding that yarn over like I showed you in the how to tie a knot video could help kind of keep it all in one place, like I'm doing right now. Make your way across. And then pull it nice and snug, not too tight, not too loose. And then what you could do with this is you could finish it. So instead of having all this extra yarn, sometimes you'll have the ends kind of, and we'll trim those at the end of the weave. But with this extra stuff, I could just tuck it in there. So I'm just going to go ahead. I ended on over. I'm going to start on under. Under, over, under. Over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. And this yarn is kind of falling apart, and you're going to have some of that yarn like that. And you know, at some point, if it gets too frustrating, then just cutting it. But being careful not to cut it, or cut your strings, because that just ruins your whole loom. That'd be hard to fix. But this lines up pretty much exact, so yeah, we'll just hide it in there. And then squish it all the way to the top. And then I can trim this later. So that is the first yarn, and then just kind of making it nice and tight at the top. Just remember, make sure that you're not tugging too tight. That's always kind of one of my things that I'm working on still. I always end up tugging one side a little bit tighter. So there's still a chance, and just this is my first yarn, for me to try to even it out so it doesn't have this hourglass shape. It has more of a rectangular shape. But yeah, and then you don't want it to be too loose either. So just nice and snug. So once you finish your first strand of yarn, then you're going to move on to the next one. So pick the next color you'd like to do. And I'm going to start on the side I ended on. So I ended over. So I'm going to go ahead and tie my knot. And then just get started again. So I ended on over. I'm going to start on under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, over, under, over. And then don't forget to pull this all the way through. And then you can leave a little bit. Sometimes I have students, they go ahead and tuck this in. They kind of weave it in. You could do that, or you could leave it and we'll trim it at the end. I don't want you trimming any of the yarn right now, but once we start working our way down, a lot of students we just trim it. But I don't get a scissors. If you cut this string right here, that ruins your whole loom and your whole weave. So, yeah, don't do that right now. Just leave it, let it hang, or tuck it in, okay? Like I showed you with that last one. So yeah, and then you're just gonna do it again, okay? And we're gonna work our way all the way down. All right, and yeah, throughout this video or throughout the weaving project, I'll show you some other tricks, and I'll give you other choices, other different types of patterns and weaves that we could do if you like. But let's just get this kind of figured out and get this going. And yeah, And if you have any questions, let me know. Have fun.